Paddy Pimblett is a legitimate title contender. Or is he? In this video I'm going to be giving my instant reaction to last night's co-main event, as well as breaking down exactly how Paddy was able to completely dismantle Michael Chandler. From the fight clips we're going to be looking at, you're going to see a stark difference in fight IQ. There are so many patterns that Paddy was putting together that all led to the finish. But before we get into looking at the fight clips themselves, let's talk about the overall performance from each fighter. Now, unfortunately for Michael Chandler, rather than bouncing back from that poor performance against Charles Oliveira, we just saw a bit of a continuation of the decline. The excitement and the X factor that we've come to love about Michael Chandler just doesn't seem to be there anymore. There was a real hesitancy about his work, and his inability to close the distance meant that he never really got into the fight. As for Paddy Pimblett, and as I did predict beforehand, he was able to put together a fantastic game plan and execute it to perfection. Now, I am going to limit slightly the amount of credit that I do give him for this performance. Don't get me wrong, it was fantastic. He barely took any damage, but it was definitely against a Michael Chandler on the decline. So when we are assessing whether or not Paddy Pimblett is a legitimate title contender, we do have to take all of this into account. But anyway, let's get into the breakdown. Let's take a look at the first fight clip. Now, one of the ways that Paddy just didn't allow Chandler to get into this fight was through his leg kicks. In the first round, he hit some really nice leg kicks. This example that we're looking at came in the second round. But as you can see, there isn't really a setup on it. Paddy lunges in there, he plants that foot on the outside, really allowing his hips to open up. We'll keep playing it through. And he connects really nice right behind the knee. I know how popular the calf kicks are nowadays in MMA, but if you go back to the old Thai boxing fights, even if you look back at MMA over 5-10 years ago, this was the spot that you always wanted to hit, especially against fighters who are heavy on that lead leg. And as you can see, Chandler, when Paddy Pimblett plants that lead leg and goes for that kick, he just completely shells up. He's really heavy on both of his legs, in fact. He isn't light on his toes, he's planted there. He tries to move it away at the last minute and Paddy connects. Now this part is really important. Look at the distance that this creates. Now Michael Chandler, he's an absolute tank, isn't he? But he's always going to be one of the shorter fighters in the lightweight division. Most of the time he's going to be shorter than his opponent. So it's so important that he closes the distance. And typically, if you look back at his old Bellator fights, his fight against Dan Hooker at the start of his UFC run, he was really good at closing this distance. But in this fight, whether it's a decline on his part or just Paddy's fantastic work that he did with these leg kicks, he was just never able to close this distance. And one of the ways that Paddy was able to dictate the range was by throwing these hard leg kicks, forcing Chandler back. And really, with Chandler being the shorter fighter, when the fight is being fought at this range, it's not beneficial to him at all. So this was one really effective way that Paddy was able to dictate the range of the fight. But as you're about to see here, this is elite level MMA, and despite having a lot of success with these leg kicks, Michael Chandler was able to time them here, and I just wish that for his own sake, he'd been able to do more of this. As you can see again, Paddy Pimblett, exactly the same setup or their lack of. He just plants his foot there on the outside, really launches in with this kick. And Chandler does exactly what he should do here. Meets it with a big right hand that catches Paddy clean on the chin. So he actually times this low kick here. But really, this is the only example I can find in the fight of him timing a kick like this. If he wanted to have any success in the fight, he needed to do a lot more of this. You can't allow the longer fighter to be able to dictate the range. As soon as Paddy throws these shots, Chandler needs to swarm him with these counters. But for whatever reason, Chandler was just unable to do that in this fight. And as we're about to see, his retreating, the way that he reacted when he got caught by shots, was one reason why he was never in this fight. So as you're about to see here, this is one of the really bad habits of Michael Chandler. Paddy, I think for the first time in this fight, but he's going to throw a lot more of these, throws a jumping switch kick that Chandler blocks partially. But now you're about to see his reaction. Let's keep it rolling here. Chandler just retreats along the side of the octagon with his hands down, and this is a really bad habit. This is in fact, just as he gets caught with the right hand there, this is exactly how he got finished by Charles Oliveira after being hurt by a shot. Lateral movement is normally good if you can follow it up with a shot of your own, but him just running along the side of the octagon with his hands down, that left hook narrowly misses. But you can see that Paddy, let's just move it back a few frames here. you can see that as Chandler retreats with his hands down completely, rather than doing that lateral movement with his guard, getting himself ready, getting his feet ready to throw a counter shot, he just runs along the side of the octagon. And again, you can tell that Paddy Pimblett has prepared for this. I'll mention this in a minute, but as you can see, it's just such a bad look for the judges. I know that it didn't go to a decision, but the judges seeing fighters run away, and Chandler did something similar against Charles Oliveira in his second fight against him as well. Running away like that just looks terrible. But anyway, going back to Paddy's game plan, you can see how much detail Paddy and his team go into their game plans, because he'd have studied the last fight against Charles Oliveira, the most relevant fight to study, and he'll have seen Michael Chandler doing this when he gets caught by a shot, when he gets forced, when he feels his back against the fence, the way that he runs along with his guard down. So for Paddy Pimblett to throw these jumping switch kicks like he did, which he knows will get big reaction out of Chandler, and then he knows he's got a couple of free shots to land on his head. And for those of you who've seen the outcome of this fight already, you'll see how this plays an integral part to the finish. But seeing the way that Paddy puts it all together, gets these reads off Michael Chandler, just shows the level of MMA that he's operating at. I know that a lot of people thought, especially before this fight, that Paddy might have still been a gimmick. And look, this is an aged Michael Chandler, so I don't want to overstate the fact. But still, it's very impressive that at this stage, he was able to get this read on Michael Chandler and really develop it into the finish. And on top of that, we are really blitzing through the clips now. We're about to get onto a grappling clip, but this is just one more bad habit of Michael Chandler that Paddy Pimblett notices at this point. It's all about patterns. That's what I want to stress. It's all about patterns. Things that Paddy sees Michael Chandler do, and he builds upon them for the finish. So this is a blitz by Paddy Pimblett. Again, is it the best look if you're a real crisp striker, a counter striker? Like, do we have many in the lightweight division? We do have a few. Justin Gaethje, which we might be speaking about later. But Paddy Pimblett blitzes forward, and Michael Chandler and throws a nice kick there as well, partially blocked. Michael Chandler, he does have a good defense when he's on the retreat like this, moving back in a straight line. But really, you don't want to be moving all the way across the octagon in a straight line like that. You can see there was no dipping, there was no turning the corner. Paddy Pimblett gets this read. He knows that when he blitzes forward, Michael Chandler won't cut an angle. He's not even taking 2 steps back and firing something of his own. He's moving back in a straight line, and this opens up a lot of attacks for Paddy Pimblett. Now, the next section of the breakdown will fall under the umbrella of a comparison of fight IQs and how Paddy Pimblett is just in a league of his own as well compared to Michael Chandler. Paddy did say that he thinks he's got the best fight IQ out of anyone, apart from John Jones. But in this fight, it's actually really hard to argue against because his game plan was executed so well. And I think in the grappling exchange we're about to look at, you'll see the comparison in fight IQs between Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett. Now, Michael Chandler has been criticised a lot for his lack of fight IQ, and it was really on display here. He's got all the physical attributes, he's a great wrestler, he gets the takedowns, but he just makes so many mistakes. First, let's look at this takedown that he does land. And this would have been a high-scoring takedown, because I know you don't get that much credit for just taking down opponents. But the fact that you can see here, you know, he's a strong guy. Paddy Pimblett's a big guy. I know they're both technically 155. In fact, they're both probably about 180 pounds here. But that lift, let's just take it back a couple of frames there. So there's a lot of upper body strength going on here. And then if you just look at Chandler's right knee there, he uses that just to tilt Paddy's right leg and get that dump. And a really nice slamming takedown. Very impactful. This is the kind of thing that could steal you around if it is close, because it's one of those takedowns that it's impactful. It does cause a bit of damage. And I'm just moving this forward a few frames to see Michael Chandler advances the position really well. He gets off some nice ground and pound. And then he actually gets both his hooks in. So he's got Paddy Pimblett's back here. But again, you know how good Paddy Pimblett's grappling is. Very rarely makes mistakes from grappling positions. Whereas Michael Chandler rushes here. He's trying to get the arms in, probably to spread out Paddy Pimblett to start attacking his neck. But here his weight is way too far forward. You want to be nice and balanced on your opponent's back, so that you can't get shook off that easily. Because in this position, Chandler doesn't need to rush it. He's got his hooks in, he had a great position, but he's just trying to rush it, and it's in round 2 of the fight as well. So one hook comes out there, you can see, and Chandler's just so high. One hook's already been removed. This is a much better angle. You can see all of Chandler's weight now is coming down through his head. Barely any of his weight from his hips is coming down on top of Paddy Pimblett. It's just not a great position, because against a very good grappler like Paddy Pimblett, who here, yeah, he's almost completely lost his grips here. Paddy Pimblett's turning his left shoulder in. He's rotating in this way, shaking Chandler off his back. There you can see Chandler's bailed on the back attack now. He's taken that hook out, but too late. Paddy Pimblett's now driving his body this way. And he ends up in Michael Chandler's guard. Now this is, this isn't jiu-jitsu. In jiu-jitsu, the guard's a really good offensive position. In MMA, Chandler doesn't want to be here, especially against a grappler. And let's face it, from what we saw in this fight, a really vicious ground and pounder like Paddy Pimblett. So that does demonstrate a real difference in the fight IQ when it comes to the grappling. The control that Paddy Pimblett, the patient control that Paddy Pimblett's able to demonstrate, compared to Michael Chandler getting overexcited, rushing positions, and ultimately ending up on bottom, which just wasn't a great look in the second round. Anyway, we're going to move back to the striking. Another comparison when it comes to fight IQs. And Michael Chandler, one thing that normally gets him in range is the way that he dips and rolls his head, moves in. If you look back at the Dan Hooker fight, the way that he was able to get him out of there, it was by doing that dipping of the head. And as you can see here, this is a great moment for Paddy Pimblett. One of the most impactful shots of the fight, apart from the finish. Chandler drops his level here. When Chandler drops his level, you know that a big left hook or right hook is coming. Again, Paddy Pimblett studied. He knows exactly what Michael Chandler's going for, and he lands a beautiful knee. A beautiful jumping knee. Just times it perfectly. Let's keep it playing forward. And that cuts Michael Chandler. You can just about see it now. And let's put the patterns together. So he's hitting with a really nice strike, forcing Chandler to retreat. Paddy Pimblett knows that he's going back in a straight line, and Paddy chases him down. You can see that cut. Really effective strike by Paddy Pimblett. Let's keep it playing forward. Jumping kick. All of these little tricks are coming together. It's so nice, so satisfying to see a game plan come together in real time like this. Forcing his back against the fence. Now what does Chandler do? For this one, to his credit, Chandler then comes out firing. And Paddy actually said it in the post-fight interview as well. There's nothing more dangerous than an injured opponent or someone who looks hurt. And that is very true of Michael Chandler. Say what you want about him, the guy is so tough. The strikes that eventually led to the finish that we'll be looking at shortly, they'd have finished guys a lot sooner than that. I'm a big Michael Chandler fan, I'll be honest with you. I think that he adds a lot to the sport, a lot of entertainment. The sport would be worse off without people like Michael Chandler. But Paddy just had his number in this fight, and his ability to time that knee, landed it perfectly, and then blitz Chandler, knowing that he was hurt at that point. It was just really good to see. And in fact, comparing that to Diego Lopez's seeming lack of fight IQ in his fight, it shows that Paddy Pimblett might be able to back up what he's saying. Now we are moving closer to the finish, and the roles have just been reversed here in round 3. Let's let it play. Paddy Pimblett, after hurting Michael Chandler, is able to get a very similar takedown. Lifting and dumping. I mean, the height difference makes a big difference there. Rather than having to use his leg like Michael Chandler did to get that leverage to turn him, Paddy's just able to lift him up and dump him. A really nice takedown there. And I don't think we can overstate the significance of Paddy being able to dump Michael Chandler like that. I mean, the UK fighters get so much stick for not being able to wrestle, but Paddy Pimblett's, his overall performance tonight was incredible. And being able to dump Michael Chandler on his way to the finish just showed that this is a fighter who is growing, who is getting better with each fight. And we'll speak about what's next once we've looked at the finish. But really, him calling for these top 5 guys, these title contender guys, when he first came to the UFC, like he said, everyone was laughing. But people are now starting to take him seriously. Let's take a look at the finish. So after taking Chandler down, threatening his back and then flattening him out, Paddy just unleashes some vicious ground and pound. Let's see what we can show here. Yeah, nice elbows. And this is what Paddy said he was going to do as well. He said that Charles Oliveira was too busy looking for the finish. Okay, that was a bit naughty. That looked like an elbow straight to the back of the head. Learned from the best, eh, Michael Chandler? Let's keep it playing. So yeah, this actually leads to the finish. You can see the referee just about to step in there. Michael Chandler covering up, offering nothing back, and Paddy Pimblett wins via TKO. So like I said, overall a very, very impressive performance by Paddy Pimblett. And how much did we learn from that? I think we did learn again, like I said, that he's a fighter who is growing, who is getting better. Although it wasn't against the very best competition, because Michael Chandler clearly is a fighter on the decline, we can still learn a lot about how good Paddy Pimblett is and his ability to put together a game plan. I know at the end that Paddy said there wouldn't be any question marks left about him, but there still are a few. He didn't have to come through any adversity in that fight. He didn't have to show game plan B, C and D. He was able to stick to that A game plan and he worked it through that fight to almost to perfection. He took very little damage in this fight and got Michael Chandler out of there, a fighter who traditionally is a kill or be killed fighter. So what do I want to see next for Paddy Pimblett? He called out a lot of names. He said he wants someone in the top 5. I think he dismissed Arman Sarukian at the end, which I think is a wise move for Paddy. I don't think that's the best matchup. I personally want to see him against Justin Gaethje. Gaethje's coming off that win against Rafael Fiziev, so that's a fight that I would like to see. And if Paddy does win that, he has a legitimate claim to a title shot. Paddy Pimblett against Islam Makhachev. If you'd asked me a couple of years ago, you know exactly what I'd have said. I'm probably still leaning that way right now. I think Islam Makhachev, I think he's just levels above anyone in the lightweight division. Probably almost levels above anyone in the UFC who isn't called John Jones or Ilia Topuria. I know Tom Aspinall fans aren't going to like me for that. But overall, what a performance by Paddy Pimblett. I hope you guys have enjoyed this breakdown. Let me know if you agree with my assessment, how well Paddy put together this game plan. Please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you guys later.